Dharma's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Thank you for your support. There is a Dharma box for contributions in the kitchen and also a link for contributions on the website.
Oh, it's so good to be with all of you. Some new faces and some very familiar faces. What a joy. I'm going to begin by sharing a slide deck. I think y'all are starting to get to know me by now, and I like to speak to slides for some reason. You know what I really like is the beauty of being able to look at beautiful pictures. Kim might know something about that. Bear with me. Okay, everybody in the room see okay? Everybody online see okay? All right, great. I changed the name of the talk this morning, just about 2 minutes ago, because I want to be careful of this word transformation and healing, although that is also what we could call it. But it's really about remembering. It's really about remembering who and what we really are. So today I'd like to explore a little bit about shame. This has certainly been something that I've been really working with in my own practice, an edge for me. And so I thought, I want to really dig into this and first of all, try to understand it on a cognitive level. What even is it? How does it work in our bodies and our nervous systems? Is it useful? Is it not useful? And then from the lens of our practice, what usefulness is it, right? In terms of practice. So, but before we get into all of that, because there is a bit to kind of talk about and understand, I wonder if we would be okay with doing just a little exercise. Everybody okay with that? And I'm not going to make you pair up or go into breakout rooms. So this is just, we're just going to do a very simple exercise. And after they're over, I'm going to just ask you to report your experience. And so just a small difference here between reporting your experience and reporting your ideas about the experience. So for example, I'm gonna say something to you in just a minute, and I'd like to ask you to notice an immediate something that comes up. It could be a thought, it could be a feeling, it could be a bodily sensation or a memory. But just notice whatever it is, and then we'll get a chance to go around and talk a little bit together about what happened for you automatically, all by itself, when you heard these things. So for a moment, just take a moment to sit again like we were doing just in Zazen moments ago. And just relax into your body, into whatever you're sitting on. And then turn your gaze inwardly and just notice what's here, what's present for you right now. Without judgment or without trying to change or fix it. There may be some physical sensations. There may be thoughts. And for this little experiment, we're just taking a step back just to watch what happens and what's happening. To be the observer. So what happens all by itself when you hear me say, what if you're not broken? What if there's nothing to fix? What if you're not broken, and what if there's nothing to fix? Okay, now remember that experience, set that aside, and pay attention closely to whatever you notice when you hear me say, it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to make a mistake. Okay, and now here's the last one. You are worthy of love and acceptance. You are worthy of love and acceptance. All right, so let's now just come back to the group, back to the room in the Zoom room, and just notice if there was one of those that had a particular zing or juice for you. Just pick one, and let's go around and just briefly name what happened for you, which one it was, and what happened. And we can do this just kind of popcorn style. Anybody can just raise their hand and we'll take turns. John Eric.
The one, but I kind of took them in pretty easily, I think, but the one that felt like I respectfully disagreed was there's nothing to fix.
I respectfully disagree.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
We have Genève.
Jeanette. Can you be unmuted?
Thank you. First of all, I just want to respectfully request that those in the Zendo speak up so we can hear. Thank you so much. And I love this exercise, and two things came to me, the first and the last in particular. The first one, what if you're not broken? My thought was, well, then who am I? And the last one about worthy of love and acceptance, I was like, I don't believe that.
Mhm.
And I fear that it isn't true. Yeah. That seems very alive in me, that fear.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You look lovely today, by the way. Shelley.
Hi, I had a reaction to the one about a mistake, and it was a serious body reaction, just like a complete, like my whole chest area got really, really tight. The other two were fairly neutral, but that one was pretty big.
Thank you, Shelley. Joel.
Thank you. When we were sitting before your prompt, I had a sensation of paying attention to my posture. And I thought, I'm not sitting up very straight. I mean, that thought passed by as I was just feeling my posture. And then the prompt came, what if you're not broken? And also, what if it's not a mistake or something, not your exact words, but what if it's not a mistake? It's just what it is right now. And I was able to breathe differently, easier within what my posture was. And I felt a sense of gratitude for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
It was the first one, What If You're Not Broken, that I had the most bodily response to. It was like a huge relief and relaxation. And could have broken down in tears easily of gratitude, I think.
About love?
You are worthy of being loved.
I was amazed that my response was just warmth
Mm,
and kind of expansion and then a crumbling.
mm,
But it was a good crumbling, and this was new to me. It's like I've crossed over, and it was so wonderful to see that.
mm. Yeah, thank you, Jim. Lily.
Thank you so much, Jessica. What came up for me was mainly, well, I didn't notice reactions for the most of them, but for the last one, I could take it in, but then there was a thought of, and yet there will be some spaces and some persons with whom you will not feel that. And so some kind of, noticing that and the sadness and grief around that also. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne.
So I had the most reaction to the last one, that you're worthy of love and respect.
Mhm.
But all of them, it all felt really separate. Like for the last one, I had this image in my mind of a doorstep, a house, you know, and you're outside the door and you're at the doorstep, and these ideas are outside the door. And this idea that these phrases are for somebody else.
Mhm. 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 Not me. Yeah. Thank you, Anne. Lisa? Linda.
I'm kind of jumping off of Anne's comment. The first one, when you said feel in your body, I really did kind of try to feel where it was and I felt my heart. And it was like, wow, this feels good. I was like really, I felt reassured and I was really happy. I just thought, what's my emotion? Happy. But by the time you got to the last one, I was thinking, well, this is really interesting. And that's, well, you know, just kind of like, I was disappointed because I wasn't still happy.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my experience. I kind of connected to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Lisa. Sorry, we'll go to Lisa and then to Kim. Hi, Lisa. Well, where'd you go?
There she's over there.
It was hard for me to land on one that I responded to more. My body, a very young part, was hearing and felt teary and relieved and vulnerable, as though it longed to hear those words and could not quite believe it was hearing those words, you know, that were kind of coming down, maybe like a soft rain. I mean, it was enveloping this part. And so this part felt very relieved and softened. And glad for each of the teachings, each of the statements. And yeah, when you got to you are worthy of being loved, it's like, oh, this is what I want so much. And not in words, but the very young part. It's like, this is what I long for.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lisa.
So I had just made a mistake right before that. So I thought, no, I'm not supposed to make mistakes. But then the second thought was immediately following that was, that's a mistake too.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you all for your Dharma talk. That was it. That's it. That's all we needed. We're done. Right? I mean, wow, how rich. Every person's experience so completely unique, arising and passing, and true for that part of you in that moment. So no right or wrong response, but just a beautiful noticing. And I'm just looking at all of you with wonder and awe at the way that you're willing to share yourself. Thank you. So let's try to break this down a little bit. This is more of like, we're not going to get anywhere, but maybe we'll just have a good time together as we explore this. Oh, I see Kathy, you just raised your hand. Did you want to add something, Kathy? Sorry, I didn't see that earlier.
Oh, there it goes. Yeah. Yes, I didn't speak before. Yeah, I noticed that my breath was really very calm during that time. And when it got to love and acceptance, I just took it in. And then at the end, I thought, I want more of this. So I waited because it sounded so egocentric, but that's what it felt like. Thank you.
Yeah, and that is, I love what you're pointing to there. There's a hunger,
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. So, I wanted to start with this definition about shame because this one really floored me when I heard this. I can send you guys some resources about this talk afterwards, but there's an actual group called the Center for Healing Shame. And one of their founders, Sheila Lyons, said this: I think there is an evolutionary purpose to shame. It can help us create better boundaries, better connections with ourselves, more creativity, more life force. Well, I still don't know what she means about that last one, but I'm with it. I'm staying with it. That deer in the headlights feeling that a lot of people get when shame shocks them can be used as information for transformation. So information. So let's dig in here a little bit. And I'll just say as an aside, I talked to Peg before I gave this talk, and she said, a lot of cultures have a lot more shame, but our culture doesn't have enough shame. And I think that that's kind of what we're pointing to here in this quote. Shame is actually really designed to keep us out of trouble. It's a what did Peg say? It's a social emotion, right? And it's for our survival. a little bit of shame, which we call healthy shame. And sometimes we make a distinction between guilt and shame. And, we get real wordy about it, but it's actually incredibly important in society. And I think that that's what Peg was pointing to. Every emotion is designed to help us, actually, right? And so to start to turn towards it as like, well, what is this for? How can I actually let this be useful for me? The thing is about shame that we know now is that it's a binding emotion. So it binds to and holds on or presses down other emotions, primarily like anger. So if you think of, of all of history, if you're in a tribe and you act out against someone and you are shamed for it, you can stay in the tribe stays safe. Or another way of thinking about it is you're a child, your parent does something wrong, probably, right? We're human. You're angry at your parent. You feel anger, but you can't express that anger to your parent most of the time. Your parent might, I don't know, you might get punished, or you might get, worst case scenario, killed or something. You're smaller. So shame comes in to protect you from that anger that you're feeling, pushing you back down, setting it aside. Where it gets a little bit problematic is that it goes really fast and it can either turn inward or outward. Shame can be an expression of like blame and distancing, or we turn it on ourselves. And we do both of these types of things all the time within ourselves. So let's look like a little bit more of what's happening in a physiological response to shame. So we have fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. These are all things that happen in the nervous system, right? Sympathetic nervous system gets activated and we either want to fight, that's anger, or flee, we want to run away. But freeze, the freeze state is where shame comes in. It causes us to actually start, that's what Sheila was talking about, the deer in the headlights, where suddenly you can't think, you actually are not able to use all of your brain power, and there's a freeze response that happens. So shame gives us information, but it's too much information. It overloads our nervous system and we shut down. But it's designed to help. So how can we keep trying to understand? How can this be helpful to us? This quote, shame is the breaking of the interpersonal bridge, is another definition that really got to me. And I don't know about you guys, but it seems like there's more of this around now, maybe because of social media or because of the sheer number of people that there are, I don't know, but there's a lot of ghosting and a lot of like, that distancing. And that's when the connection breaks, that's when we really feel shame. And the person who's disconnecting probably feels shame too. So this is not an other situation. But when that interpersonal bridge breaks, we go into shame. And when the interpersonal bridge breaks, the intrapersonal bridge gets broken. And we start to split into the part of ourselves that starts to shame ourselves, and then we make shame, we shame. That we're ashamed of being, feeling shame. So it's really, this is the key for me and why this is a practice. This is our practice because we have a relational practice here at Appamada and in Zen. And it is our practice to not break that interpersonal bridge. And what I see so beautifully about our community is that we stay with, even in the hard stuff. And that takes practice. I mean, we might need space. I'm not saying stay and fight, but we might need to take time for ourselves, but we keep the interpersonal bridge, and that's the practice. So let's keep going.
It's fun.
What's fawning? My favorite go-to. It's actually, it's an incredibly wise survival mechanism, where if a person is in danger, they go to love the, they're like, oh, to the aggressor. So if you think about if you think about a child, that maybe their mama hits them, and then they go, oh, mama, and they hold their mama, and they start crying, please don't leave me, mama. It's that. It's, let me get cute and beautiful and loving so you don't leave. It's fawning. Yeah, and I definitely identify as a fawner. So Kim, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Maybe this is a quote for you to read, since you basically gave us a teaching on this already.
When we practice Zazen, we do not make any special effort to correct our mistakes. The effort to correct mistakes is also a mistake. Suzuki Roshi, Sunria, Suzuki Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind.
Yeah. Did you know that he said that already?
No.
Okay. So when we make mistakes, which we do all the time and will do, we might feel a sense of shame about our mistakes. But in Zen practice, mistakes are simply a part of the process. And it is our practice to see where we're getting caught in self-judgment, and to continue practicing, and to continue to open to non-judgmental mind. Okay, so this involves working at an optimal distance from the shame and not blending, or noticing when we're blended in IFS terms, noticing when we're caught and we can't get out of the shame. And for me, it's this posture, and for a lot of us, it's the turning down, turning in, it's the I'm broken, something's wrong with me, So we want to just step back like we did in that first exercise, work at an optimal distance. Observe. That's the first way of beginning to work with it. And then there's something called pendulation, which we won't actually go into too much, but it's the ability to feel and deal at the same time. So you go in a little bit and then you come back out. You go in and you come back out. You're touching it. You're just gently touching it. Oop. And we know that the care system, the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, soothes the pain, and the grief system, the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight. Parasympathetic soothes sympathetic. Care soothes pain. And so we know also that self-compassion is actually long recognized as the antidote to shame, but not so easy, right? For me, when I'm caught in recursive thinking about how bad I am and how broken I am, or how I shouldn't have done this situation, self-compassion is somewhere else, not in the room. I need more help than that. So John Eric and I have been lately listening to a lot of mantra, and mantra is one way, and some of the chants that we do are one way that I can actually give my mind some space from my own mind. I'll introduce this idea, although this is not what the topic is about today, but there are bodhisattvas and mahasattvas, beings, right, that have done this practice along with us and before us. There's also one called a Vajrasattva that I'm just learning about, but the most interesting definition of the Vajrasattva that I found is Vajrasattva is the fundamentally pure, blazingly radiant, ever-knowing essence of your very own mind.
Read that again.
Yeah. The fundamentally pure, blazingly radiant, ever-knowing essence of your very own mind. So sometimes I have to put it outside of myself. I have to think of Vajrasattvas and Bodhisattvas and beings that are holding this radiant light, and I have to be like, please, Bodhisattva, please, you know, for just a little bit on the inside. I have to. Please give me a view that is actually in accord with life. Please let me remember who I really am. You know, there is a bit of a begging there for me. And I'm not advocating that, but that's just how it starts. It's like, I just need suffering to be relieved. And so I have found so much joy in the practice of mantra and chanting. So this brings us to the hymn to the perfection of wisdom that we read every single morning. And it's easy to memorize this one because it's rather short, it's so beautiful, and we say it every day. And it's talking about Prajna Paramita, which is also the Heart Sutra, right? This is a big component of our practice. And this one, just for whatever reason, gives me such deep relief from this shame-filled suffering when I get into it. And so what I did here is I wrote the hymn on one side, and then I translated it in my own words on the other side, as Flint sometimes does. And so I'll just read through this and just notice whatever happens for you as you hear these words. Homage to the perfection of wisdom, the lovely, the holy. So what is homage? What is paying homage? It's a tribute, right? Or it's opening oneself to what? What am I opening to? To the light of awareness. So I open my heart and mind to the light of awareness, which lives in us as our recognition of beauty, the lovely, and as our remembrance of wholeness, the holy. Holy actually just means remembering your wholeness. Unstained, the entire world cannot stain her. She is a source of light, and from everyone in the triple world, she removes darkness. So these two are there's a lot there, right? Unstained, the entire world cannot stain her. What I wrote is a lot more dense than this, but what I think about is there I am with my beautiful friend having a walk on a gorgeous day, and all I see is her beauty, and I say, I like your sweater, and she says, oh, it's got a stain on it. I didn't see the stain, I saw her, right? And just like Trudy said about our rakasus, when you're sewing and you're like, whoa, what was that? You'll see the stitches, they'll see the robe. Unstained, the entire world cannot stain her. Crossing to the other shore, moving beyond dualistic fixed ideas, we remember our true nature. She is a source of light, and from everyone in the triple world, she removes darkness. First of all, I had to be like, what is the triple world? This clear seeing helps us remember to include the fullness and the complexity of our experience as the pure expression of life as it is. Our true nature, wisdom, shines into the physical, mental, and emotional world and cuts through the fog of delusion. Most excellent are her works. She brings light so that all fear and distress may be forsaken and disperses the gloom and darkness of delusion. This wisdom clears away the clouds of delusion and the confusion that arises from our attachment to fixed ideas of self and other. she herself is an organ of vision. Whoa. She's an organ of clear seeing. The perfection of wisdom is an organ of vision. It is a way of perceiving the world through the lens of interconnectedness. The wisdom that comes from dependent co-arising, which is aperspectival, another word that Peg taught me, does not have perspective. It doesn't have one perspective, it has all perspective. She has a clear knowledge of the own being of all dharmas, for she does not stray away from it. She has a clear knowledge of the own being of all dharmas, for she does not stray away from it. Intimate, immediate, seeing things as they are, no longer clinging to ideas of solid, permanent, me or mine. The perfection of wisdom of the Buddhas sets in motion the wheel of Dharma. Clearly seeing, we inspire compassionate action towards ourselves and others. Compassionate action, the wheel of Dharma. Whew, I know that's a lot. That should have been the whole talk, actually, just that. But I had to integrate this part about shame because this is clear seeing, which is the actual antidote for shame, and how self-compassion can arise when we can see clearly, when we can see beyond. And so please do spend time with this hymn. This is such a beautiful chant. And yeah, I think that the more we get it in us, the more we can go about our day remembering the words, especially when we get stuck. Then this is how it's actually helpful. This is how it's actually bringing about our light and our own light. When we embody the perfection of wisdom in this way, we dissolve barriers between self and other. Love becomes not something we give or receive, but something we are. Compassion then is the natural outflow of this deep understanding. We begin to see the world not through the lens of fear, competition, or scarcity, but through the eyes of a friend who knows that we are all connected, that all beings are inextricably bound in a web of mutual care. So, what about this? What's useful about shame? What if it's not here to punish us, but to show us something, to awaken us? What if when we experience it, it's information? First thing, we can remember it is a universal social emotion. Everyone has it. So we can take away shame, being ashamed of feeling shame. Everybody has it. It can help us create better boundaries. I can say, ooh, when you did that, I didn't like it. Or when I did that, I didn't like it. And I can do something different next time. It can be good information, and it can give us a reason to pause and to practice. So I'll leave you with these questions. If there is no separate self, then who exactly is ashamed? If there is no fixed identity, then what is left to protect, defend, or improve? Thank you very much. I think we have a few minutes for questions, comments, experience. Rosemarie.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I think it's a topic that many of us feel ashamed of shame, as you said. And a few things, it reminds me of, well, this is not Peg feeling ashamed, but something she wrote about when she had a really difficult practice discussion and she was feeling like, I can't help anybody. She wrote about this, so it's private. And then she realized, well, if I'm disparaging myself, I'm disparaging the three treasures. A really hard thing to remember when you're in the midst of it. The other thing is, what you were saying about fawning, psychoanalysis, we call it appeasing the aggressor. So it's a good phrase to hold on to. And then lastly is a really short poem by, that this reminded me of, by Galway Connell, St. Francis and the Sow. The bud stands for all things. Well, so the reason is that we can remind ourselves of how whole we are and that we need each other to be so the bud stands for all things, even for those things that don't flower. For everything flowers from within of self-blessing. Though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on the brow of the flower and retell it in words and in touch, it is lovely, until it flowers again from within of self-blessing. As St. Francis put his hand on the creased forehead of the sow and told her in words and in touch, blessings of the earth on the sow, and the sow began remembering all down her thick length, from the earthen snout all the way through the fodder and slops to the spiritual curl of the tail. From the hard spininess spiked out from the spine, down through the great broken heart, to the blue milken dreaminess spurting and shuddering from the 14 teats into the 14 mouths sucking, and blowing beneath them the long, perfect loveliness of sow. Thank you.
And I love that point that you make, just that we need each other, and this is a practice. Thank you. John Eric.
I was just appreciating how you interwove the perception of wisdom gives light with shame, because shame is inherently in the darkness. And so by true perception, which is done relationally, because it's a relational wound, then we bring light to these parts of us that we try to keep hidden in the darkness, which is, it makes sense why we might want to do that, but it's not the true nature of things to separate off. So I just want to thank you for tying these two things together. I thought that was really illustrative and wise, so thank you.
Thank you for putting it so succinctly. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you talked about shame and anger and looking back into, what part of you, I reflected on that, and it seemed to me that shame seemed to me, from what you were saying, to be inappropriately directed anger. That and the fawning description really helped me out there. That instead of being angry at some inappropriate thing, particularly if you're a child, because you don't know it's inappropriate, you just know that something's inappropriate, and you don't know you're mad, so you have this madness or this anger, you don't know what to do with it, so you just bring it on home. And that's how I heard what you said, and I wanted to know if I just went off someplace else because that's where I went in my own life experience, or if that's a point that you were making.
I think so, yeah. And Gabor Mate talks about this, and I don't know if you guys know about him, but he does a lot of research on addiction, and the relationship of shame is very important to people with addictions, right? And what he says is, it happened to all of us as infants. So essentially, what happens as an infant is, and of course, this is going to happen at some point, you're going to experience shame. But he says you can shame an infant. You know how? You look away. And what happens is the infant initially starts fighting, right? It's like, but then if you don't, so that's exactly, I think, what you're describing. It's a process, and it's a social emotion, and it's something that comes in to protect. You know, the baby can't waste all of its energy fighting and crying, so it goes into a shame state, or it goes to sleep.
And that interferes with your ability to be present. Back to the beginning of your talk, that shame interferes with your ability to feel great with each one of the statements that you made. The first one being, consider that you're not broken. I don't remember the second one, and the third one was that you're worthy of love.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you, the shame base, if you get too caught up in that, it gets in the way.
That's right.
So it's sort of a block to be removed. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Like attachment theory, if we just leave the baby all the time, the baby learns to not attach anymore. Whereas if we tend to the baby learns a healthy attachment. That's exactly what you're speaking to. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we're gonna.
Okay. Oh, can we just hear one last thing from Shelley, because I love to hear from Shelley, and then we'll finish up. Okay.
So I just
I'm
wanted to
trying to
say,
unmute you. There you go.
I just want to say, Jess, that it was really interesting, the body sensation, or the body nonverbal that you shared around shame. And I don't know if you noticed it, but it was like this. And I think that can be shame if directed inward, but it can also be a deep, reverent surrender to what is.
Yes, and I think what you're saying is choice or practice or decision.
Yeah. So I just didn't want us to get stuck in this being shame when it could be such profound, reverent surrender to what is.
Thank you, Shelley. Okay, thank you all for your beautiful participation and for all of your words.